Hi, welcome back to our mini-series about German history and German culture, and today we will deal with the 18th century. We will start with the neighboring France. Why? From 1643 to 715, France was ruled by Louis XIV, Louis XIV or Louis the Great. He invented the absolute state and gathered all cultural life at the court of Versailles. Why was that important for Germany? The Holy Roman Empire of German state was still divided in more than 300 counties, duties, empires, and almost each of them tried to imitate Louis XIV. So they built theaters, concert halls, took culture to the courts, and made it widespread all over in the German territories. The most important political development in the German history of the 18th century was the rise of Prussia and the dualism between Austria and Prussia. Prussia was led by Frederick the Great, while Austria by Maria Theresia. Frederick the Great made Berlin the true capital of Prussia, and he did so by building famous institutions such as the Charité, which became one of the most modern medical institutions and still is until today, or the construction of the famous palace of Sanssouci next to Berlin. On the other side, Vienna became the heart of classical music. Composers like Joseph Haydn and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart spent most of her composing life in Vienna. But if you truly want to understand German history in the 18th century and today, it's best represented by three names who played a very important role not only for German culture in the 18th century. It's Johann Sebastian Bach, the famous composer, Immanuel Kant, the great philosopher, and Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the great writer. Each of them laid the foundation for the upcoming writers, composers, musicians, philosophers, not only in the cultural life of Germany. None of them had the residence in one of the big cities, and that tells you so much about the German culture. Kant lived in Königsberg, a faraway city from the German heartland in nowadays Russia. At that time it belonged to Prussia. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who was born in Frankfurt, went to the court of Weimar, a very small town in the center-eastern part of Germany, where he gathered a number of famous writers. One of them was his friend Friedrich Schiller. And Bach, the famous composer, spent most of his life in smaller cities in the center-eastern part of Germany. The biggest one actually where he spent most of his time was Leipzig. So German culture was so much decentralized. And this was even emphasized by the rise of cities who took over these very typical cultural life into their cities by building theater buildings, concert halls, museums. So what is very typical for German history and culture in particular is this ongoing decentralized spread of cultural life, represented best by these three very great people, Bach, Goethe, and Kant. That's for today. See you next time for the German history of the 19th century.